your goals can be better served, both from ONC, the Office of National Coordinator for Health IT, the CMS Innovation Center, and of course the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. All of us represent teams of very dedicated, very passionate individuals who are working within the federal government to serve your daily needs. We have an incredible amount of data, and we get to see the entire continuum, which is a good thing and a bad thing. From one perspective, we get to, I guess, provide a lot of resources, try to facilitate and convene and help to identify what's a priority for the nation. But at the same time, having that 100,000-foot, I guess, point of view, it takes us away from, I guess, the people who are in the trenches, kind of struggling with issues related to innovation on a day in, day out basis. So please, after we go through our, short presentation, short talk, I'd like to hear from you. We'll have runners going around with mics to kind of capture your point of view. Certainly, we can fill up the entire time, but I think that following lunch, it'd be good to have a little bit of more interaction, okay? And it'll get the blood flowing a little bit, okay? So, what have you heard so far, okay? I mean, Todd really captured it very, very succinctly. We're creating an environment, okay? As a result of high tech, okay, the legislation out of the Recovery Act that really made a major down payment investment in health IT and health reform, we are creating new markets for both those who would innovate, okay, the supply side of the equation, those who are, taking all this great data, creating new infrastructure to achieve new things. And at the same time, we're trying to help the supply side of the equation, the demand side of the equation, those who would consume, those who have new needs, who are trying to achieve some of the, I guess, the efforts and promises of healthcare reform, okay? What we're doing at HHS is really to try to promote as many opportunities for engagement as possible. And that revolves around three core themes: communication, collaboration, okay, and support. Communication in the sense of like hearing what you all are interested in, trying to identify what are the risks associated with I guess certain endeavors, okay? Looking for opportunities to collaborate. I think a fair number of you in this room have been working very closely with the federal government, either as part of our grant programs or as part of events to try and achieve some of those, I guess, goals. And then finally, direct support, either through grant mechanisms or very new exciting programs, prizes and challenges. As Todd said, we are open for business, okay? We're trying to serve your needs. You all are the innovators. You all are those who will be working to execute on these kind of grand designs, and we want to be there to support you as much as possible. So what have we been doing specifically, okay? Encouraging innovations that will be required to enhance health and well-being for all Americans. For the first time in a long time, we've enacted policies that assumes a certain level of development. And I'm using innovation in a general term, not just new technologies, but new care models, new reimbursement models, and trying to create, I guess, a safe environment in which to do so. All of you come from organizations that will be undergoing a significant amount of volatility in the next few years. I think if I took a show of hands, how much do you think your lives will change over the next decade or so? Okay, I think the overwhelming answer will be quite a bit. Okay, and there is a great deal of risk associated with going down pathways that represent high risk. What we're trying to do is identify the products, services, and ideas that will help serve as signposts to help achieve that, okay? And that would be in the lines of supporting meaningful use, health reform, and the achievement of a high-performance learning healthcare system, okay? It's an innovation imperative, as I like to say, and this is one of many, this event that we're part of right now is one of many events that we've been undergoing in the last, I guess, 2 years or so to try and support, I guess, the achievement of a safe ecosystem to ensure collaboration. Okay, what are the core values that we're trying to I guess, press forth? Passionately inspire innovation. Certainly, I think when you all saw Todd literally vibrating in place, okay, you can see the enthusiasm that he exuded, and really it's quite infectious, and many of us share that overall feeling within the department. Okay, we're trying to demonstrate bold leadership, not in deciding what are the specific pathways that one must go through, but actually providing the resources for many innovators to simultaneously work in parallel. Okay? We're trying to promote communication amongst many diverse stakeholder groups. Okay? Messaging to those who we've not previously reached out to, investors. Okay? Those who would support innovation in the form of startups or accelerators. Those who would, support innovation from the adoption side by helping to, promote a culture of being open to, appropriate degrees of risk and supporting judiciously, either through grant mechanisms, through contracting mechanisms, or other efforts to catalyze new developments. Okay? So I can't really take credit for this thesis. It's both shared by Todd and many others within the department, but now is the best time to innovate in healthcare. And we really attribute this to a confluence of policy forces as well as market forces that are conspiring to, address some of the macro challenges that we're seeing. Okay? Really the demographic trends that we've been seeing over the last few years are going to be continuing, and the challenge that the position that the American healthcare system is put in as a result is going to be untenable. And we fervently believe that we will be able to innovate our way out of this. Okay. So I put up a very, basic framework for how we see developments taking place within the private sector. Okay. You start off on the left-hand side, starting with a concept, an idea. Okay. Developing a prototype, eventually reaching proof of concept. As a proof of concept is nurtured, as we begin to, identify the data that supports it, early adoption takes place. A refinement of the idea, continue validation of both the value proposition as well as the business model that leads to a series of late-stage adoption. Okay, this is really the framework that we see developers in the private sector, whether they be a 1 or 2 person startup, whether it be a large conglomerate that's, initiating a new product line. Okay, it's really the various stages of innovation, and where we see ourselves supporting the entrepreneur, the startup, those who would help address some of the challenges we're having, is to help them move through the various stages. Okay, not really telling them what they have to do, but providing the resources so that the identification of risk, the identification of collaborators, the finding of resources becomes easier. Okay, and so what we've done is developed a model where those who would seek to address problems within healthcare can move through that value chain. Okay, and so many of our programs, some of them may look familiar to you, are overlaid over this on top of this framework. Todd mentioned prizes and challenges. Okay, that's right in the middle of the screen. We've developed a series of challenges, some very basic in terms of developing mobile apps, but some a little bit grander in terms of, identifying appropriate ways of ensuring safe care transitions through the exchange of data. Okay, these are all efforts designed to help those who would to address some of the challenges that we have within healthcare move through these various stages. Okay, and if the federal government can help to lead by inserting some of its DNA into these various stages, so be it. Okay, I think that as long as we have a robust pipeline of developers working to these ends, it's ultimately going to help us solve some of the challenges we have, both on the health IT side, which serves as the infrastructure for health reform. Okay, so why are we here today? The opportunity is basically framed as DC to VC. Promoting engagements between various stakeholder groups, especially the early stage startup community, those who would invest in those groups, those who would help us move entrepreneurs through this value chain and increase the level of discussion and activity that's taking place. So the first time ever, the federal government is actually reaching out to some of these groups, and you can see Todd pictured here. We've done probably about 30 or so events over the last 18 months or so, everywhere from, well-known events such as WIT and HIMSS and large healthcare conferences to those that might not sound so familiar, like South by Southwest. There's a large community within Omaha, Nebraska. They call themselves Big Omaha, the Silicon Prairie. Okay, areas such as Seattle, Washington, and Deep South, all which are, I guess, burgeoning sites of development. And we're trying to engage as many groups as possible, okay? Whether there be large technology vendors that are just beginning to explore healthcare, or small startups and working with the aggregating groups that help bring them together, okay? We're initiating prizes and challenges, as I mentioned earlier. I guess we just had one closed about 2 weeks ago where the vice president said we need to, I guess, identify how we can address some of the challenges we're having within the domestic violence and domestic abuse space. So a challenge effort was put up called Apps Against Abuse. Mobile apps towards, I guess, addressing and mitigating some of the risks associated with, I guess, young men and women who are susceptible to domestic violence, domestic abuse, okay? And this it was an opportunity for innovators to develop and work towards a common goal. We had about 50 or so submissions, okay? A very simple example, okay, but a proof of concept where we open up the challenge that we have within healthcare today to innovators across this country, okay? It actually took an act of Congress, okay, to develop the legislation in order to make prizes and challenges available across the administration. And I'm very pleased to say that we have a pipeline of about 30 or 40 challenges that are coming down the line within HHS alone. Okay, we have a larger effort called Innovation Exchanges for Health IT, taking groups of innovators, okay, whether they be from Intel or Cisco or large organizations to small startups, and arranging speed dating sessions with those who are forward-looking in healthcare organizations, okay, in order to see if there are opportunities for test beds, okay. A great way to, I guess, form collaborations towards that proof of concept goal. This is not an activity meant to, I guess, vend one's wares, but really to set up clinical trials for health IT. How can we get over the natural hurdles that currently exist within a very conservative, I guess, infrastructure to allow for the assumption of, I guess, bounded levels of risk, okay? So these speed dating exchanges have been very popular, okay? There's a long and robust waiting list, okay, for innovators who want to participate in them. And it gives us a good deal of confidence that you know, we will find solutions to very challenging areas, such as the data analytics issues that we're currently seeing, okay? And in closing, I'd like to highlight that, you know, we're trying on the supply side really to create the environment, okay, really to create the market opportunities for both high tech and health reform as a backdrop, okay, really trying to identify what is important to us, okay, as a nation, okay, how can we bring these large, robust communities to bear and, I guess, get them working towards common goals without specifically telling them what to do, okay. Let me turn it over now to my colleague, Aman, who will be talking a little bit more about the adoption of some of these technologies and what we're doing to work with, I guess, large healthcare organizations, both on the CMS Innovation Center side, as well as through the Office of the Chief Technology Officer.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, so I'm just going to pick up on some of the themes that Will talked about here, and I think, you know, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is the signals, and those signals as important, you know, things that people should be paying attention to, and the ways in which we are shifting internally, as well as what's happening externally, which you all know about. And so, you know, to put in a little bit of context, you know, so hopefully Todd convinced you this morning, you know, the three big buckets, you know, that we like to think about overarching is, you know, obviously data. You know, he probably talked a lot about the Health Data Initiative, and hopefully he convinced you that we're entering this industrial revolution of data, and how we think about, how we capture, how we analyze, who has access to data is undergoing a fundamental shift in ways that we've never seen before. And I can attest to that from when we go to South by Southwest, or when we go to meetings like Brooklyn Beta, or when we go and do the DC to VC events. So that's the data piece, and it's very important to keep in mind the communities in which we go to that are outside of the places which we live and work, you know, conferences like this and our daily work. Those people now, for the first time, have access to and are interested in the work that we all are doing. So just purely by the players who are involved, the landscape has totally shifted over the last 5 years. and we're doing what we can to increase that shift. So that's on the data side. When we talk about, the second big category is, innovation, and the third is technology. When we talk about innovation, obviously there's a lot of work happening in the federal government that Will touched upon. And so, one of the things that I like to think about when I meet with people and try to learn from people like you is to say, okay, well, how do you connect policy to what's happening on the ground? And so, to take a step back, to look at the big picture, the policy level picture, and then to drill it down deeper in terms of some of the examples that Will gave, if you go and read the American Strategy for Innovation out of the White House, or if you go and read the Open Government Memorandum that the president signed on his very first day in office, those are the things that have laid the way for us to be able to do some of this activity. And those things, while not healthcare specific, have turned out to be incredibly important for us to be able to collaborate and partner with the outside, what Will touched upon. And so we know, and as Todd hopefully said this morning, this is a community effort. This is an ecosystem building effort. And the work that Will and I do, I like to think of it as how do we build a bridge to you? And how do we build a bridge between communities? Because in order for us to transform the system, it's going to take everybody. And so, kind of the final piece on the technology side, I won't say much about that except that we've got, obviously lots of experimentation there. But the piece that I want to kind of come back to is the innovation piece. And you heard probably a lot about the data piece. And the innovation piece is central to a lot of our activity. Whether it's through Open Government or the American Strategy for Innovation, we've got lots of innovation funds and units and offices that have cropped up across government in the last 2 or 3 years. Some have been around for longer, certainly, but the ramp of activity has been tremendous over the last 2 to 3 years. Whether that's the VA Innovation Fund at the Veterans Affairs, if you go look at va.gov/VAI2, it's a $100 million open innovation contest with industry. They pick 5 areas that they want to get involved in. They say, these 5 areas are really important to us. We're willing to take any application that will address something in one of those 5 areas. $100 million every year. They just announced the winners this week. I think it was probably Friday. And you'll see there that some of the people who actually won that are not the usual suspects. Again, another sign of expanding the tent for more people to get involved. So that's happening at the VA, it's happening at Energy, it's happening at DOD, it's happening at the EPA, and obviously very importantly for us, it's happening inside of HHS. And so there's I think the biggest one of them all is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, which, as you may know, is this $10 billion center for the next 10 years. And so that is the latest innovation opportunity that exists within government. And the folks inside the center, I can say to you, are starting to borrow from these other mechanisms. And whether it's prizes and challenges or whether it's getting out to the community. For example, we have Joe McCannon, who's a senior advisor to Don Berwick. He's going to New York City tomorrow with Todd to talk to some of the investors and to talk to some of the entrepreneurs. And I can tell you that at CMS, if you go back 10 years, most of the philosophy and the vision about what CMS is a payer of claims. We're just a public insurance company. The last 10 years, we've seen that kind of a transformation to say we are a partner. And that idea of being a partner and being a collaborator has really shifted in the last 2 to 3 years, and really with the implementation of the CMS Innovation Center, which launched last year at this time. And so that is a significant shift, because when I come to meetings like this or when I go outside, people say, well, where's CMS at the table? And now you're going to start to see CMS at the table. And that is a huge, huge shift. And so, so the Innovation Center alone, we've got a very robust pipeline that's coming out, whether it's around the programs we have, bundled payment or patient safety or ACOs, but also with things around infrastructure, which is what Will talked about. So building the community, building the ecosystem. So one of the biggest things that we just launched around that infrastructure piece is the Innovation Advisors Program. So we just announced an Innovation Advisors Program probably about 2 weeks ago, where we are taking applications from anybody, anywhere in the country, where you get to be an innovation advisor back to the center. And we get to work together collaboratively to say, how can we align what makes sense, in terms of the low-hanging fruit that we all know has to be done to transform the healthcare system. And so each innovation advisor, I think, is going to, get about $20,000 to support their activity, which is about, a day's worth of work, for the entire course of a year. And in the first tranche, we're going to select 50 innovation advisors, and then the second tranche will hopefully get up to 200 in total. And the applications closed for that on November 15th, I believe. So I encourage everybody here to apply, or to tell people especially embedded in health facilities, to apply. But that's an example of coupling with the programs and policies that we have traditionally done with some of the this mindset around open innovation, and using this idea of an open innovation strategy to be able to collaborate and partner with people on the outside. And that is a hugely important shift that has allowed us to do things like the Innovation Advisors Program to couple with the existing infrastructure that we've always done for quite a period of time. The last thing that I'll say is that also inside of the Innovation Center, we've built a group called the Learning and Diffusion Group. The Learning and Diffusion Group it's just a name, but what that group is really charged with is thinking about how do we scale innovation across the country. Such a group has never existed within inside CMS. This should be another signal to people, along with the programs and policies we have, along with infrastructure and building community and building the ecosystem with you all, that we also have an actual entire group devoted to thinking about how do we scale this across the country. And so, and I actually have not seen this kind of group exist in some of the other innovation offices across government. So this is something that is relatively unique to us because we've got a huge task in front of us. And so that is actually where the Innovation Advisors Program came out of. And so there's a huge set of activities coming around. How do we help people scale up to think about ACOs? How do we get people on board with bundle payments? How do we provide technical assistance? And so borrowing a little bit from the ONC model of the RECs that are out there is how do we do this internally? And so this is just another signal of what we're trying to do along the entire spectrum of making sure we build the ecosystem such that we are a very successful community to the extent that we can be. I think with that, it'd be good to kind of take questions from you and learn from you and hear, what are on people's minds. This is something that, we want to take back with us because I think we're very serious now about being a partner with you all in terms of, moving this area forward. And, we're open to ideas and suggestions. We're open if people want to do, I think, Will, you touched a little bit about, or probably Todd did this morning, about whether it's doing a hackathon or a codathon, to get the community together, or whether it's something along the lines of, thinking about an innovation advisor style program. And this is by no means to say that government is the only ones doing this. As you all know, you've been doing this work for years, and we're just catching up to what's happening externally. And if you look, if you look out across the spectrum, I think that the public sector and the private sector are starting to move. Getting better at moving in lockstep. If you look at all the innovation units and offices open up across the country, most of them have popped up over the last 5 to 6 years. Most of them really in the last 2 years. And so there's definitely another signal externally about, kind of supporting that ecosystem. There's also the incubators. 4 health incubators or seed accelerators have popped up in the last 12 months alone. 2 of those launched at government events. Again, another signal of our seriousness about being a partner, being a collaborator, and also seeding ideas with you all. So I'll just leave it at that, and we can talk more about the Innovation Center. We can also talk more about some of the other activities.
Great. Let me just give a quick, show of support. I love this advisors program. Okay, there's no organization in this country that has a monopoly on the best idea of how to provide care, on how best to handle care transitions. And as one of the largest reimbursers of care in this country, I think it is a travesty that the federal government is not reaching out to some of the best minds in this country to learn from them, okay? To learn what can we do better as a nation with response to our healthcare system. We are certainly not going to have the best ideas being in our little echo chamber in DC, okay? Why don't we reach out to those best minds, develop an infrastructure for pulling in those best ideas, validating them with good data, and then scaling them, replicating them as appropriate, okay? And there's actually authority that has been granted as a result of health reform that gives the secretary the power to make changes to reimbursement law. Okay, if the actuary of HHS deems it, cost savings. Okay, without any change in health outcomes, before it actually took an act of Congress to make changes to reimbursement. So, as I said before, the problems that we have within healthcare need to be addressed. Okay, the market forces are untenable currently, and so we're on a path where we have to invent our way out of this. Okay, and we're looking to you all as collaborators. So, with that, let me open it up to the floor. There are, I guess, roving mics around here. please, if you have a thought, a comment, okay, please, we'd love to hear from you.
And if you have any questions about Todd's talk this morning, we'd be happy to talk about that as well, following up on the data piece or the innovation piece.
I mean, are we on the right track? Do you think this is a good idea? Okay, at least a general comment. This would be helpful. Okay, it's always the bravest person that goes first.
Well, you know, I'm always willing to ask you guys.
Oh, gold star for you. Okay.
So the advisors program, I don't know if I've heard about that before. Maybe you sent me something, but can you explain that in a little more detail, like what you're looking for and what you expect these folks to do? Because I didn't completely understand the specifics.
Sure. So the advisors program has been set up, out of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. It's got about $6 million total in funding, which is really a drop in the bucket compared to the total funding of Medicare and Medicaid overall. And so we use the term innovation advisors, but think of it as a fellows program. And so it's a fellows program where we can take the best minds across the country to work on particular issues. And so the big issues that we care about now, you know some of them that are on the pipeline, but the big programs we've rolled out are patient safety. That's $1 billion program. The ACO program, bundled care, that's coming out. All of those. So the activity that we do under the Innovation Center is to get support externally and to say, let's create a collaboration by bringing on fellows who sit at their home institution and will come to DC from time to time. So if you think about any of the other fellow programs out there, like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Health Scholars Program or the Clinical Scholars Program, so it's in that vein or in that spirit. And so the idea there is to select people and eventually get up to 200. And so some of these people will actually help us scale some of these programs across the country eventually. And so a lot of the work that we do is experimental, and this is one of those experiments that we said, we've got to build infrastructure, and we've got to build a way for us to get input back into the federal government from ideas that are happening on the ground. And so I don't know if that explains a little bit, gives you a little bit more clarity about being more of a, don't be confused by the term innovation advisor. Think of it as almost being a fellow and being, kind of a bridge between the Innovation Center and on the ground communities, especially if you're embedded in a healthcare facility. Yeah, so I think I had mentioned that I believe that as $20,000 will go out in terms of funding that you'll receive, and I think the expectation is generally 1 day a week. So some of this is still going to be determined depending on the first class that we get and the makeup of that class. Does it happen to be that everybody, we have 20% in patient safety, 20%, in something else, and so I think some of that's still yet to be determined.
Basically, it's a very simple infrastructure, for pulling in ideas from the external environment. And the problem that the federal government has as a whole, is to actually determine what is the most efficient way to get those ideas. There are actually laws in place that prevent us from talking to the external world, and asking specific questions. I kid you not, there's something called the Paperwork Reduction Act where I cannot ask the same question more than 9 times to different individuals. Think about all you know about crowdsourcing, everything you know about trying to pull in the best available data and how communication supports a properly functioning organizational structure. And reverse that, and you have the federal government, because we're not set up, to learn from you all. We're set up to administer large behemoth programs, and execute very regimented operational, protocols. How do we modify those so they adapt, to the changing environment? As technology becomes available, what is the best way to pull those ideas in? These are some of the thoughts that we're trying to learn from folks like yourselves.
Yeah, and to pick up on what Will said is, that's why the Innovation Advisor Program is such a big deal. Even though the funding level itself is extremely small compared to the other programs, it's a big deal because of that. That's why the Challenges Program is a really big deal. We've got grants and we've got contracts. That's how we procure. That takes a long time and is very cumbersome and is closed off to people who are not part of that system. And so the challenges are a really big deal because truly it democratizes access to the solution for our problem and puts us in touch with people we would have never been able to be put in touch with before. And I can tell you, we've seen tremendous success stories from the Challenges program. And the Challenges program is not just a government thing, clearly. Eli Lilly and GE, they've been doing this for a long time, if not for a decade. And so, but that's why we do some of these things, is because it builds a community, but it also helps us find a third way to get to the solution faster.
Any other questions, thoughts? Yes, up front. Oh.
Thanks. Ginny Lenahan, Care First. I find it exciting, and I've been in healthcare for 40 years. I've also raised 2 sons, and I'm wondering what you're doing to reach out to colleges and high schools where you talk about trying to pull in the best and the brightest. There are some amazing individuals out there who may not have yet been turned on to the idea that they could participate in solving a problem as huge as America's healthcare issues. So what are you doing to reach out to that group?
I think that's an excellent question. Okay. Through High Tech, we have funded university training programs, community college efforts. We've developed curricula around health IT specifically. Okay. Through the health reform and the CMS Innovation Program, we were actually going to announce several challenge efforts, okay, designed to reach out towards to graduate schools, okay, for policy and engineering, computer science, as well as business schools and medical schools, okay, to really engage that incoming cohort. I think that very few graduates today are aware of the opportunities that are available within healthcare. Why would I want to work in a sector that is always talked about negatively in the news, okay? And we're trying to communicate some of the market opportunities, not only for those who might want to enter the field, okay, as a part of the new workforce, but also those who might be entrepreneurs, who might be solution providers, if you will. Okay, so it's an area that's very near and dear to our heart. Todd and Anish have been crisscrossing the nation at various universities. We were just at Syracuse last week, okay, and we're trying to reach out to that community.
I have a suggestion. Put Todd Hart on YouTube.
Well, he is on YouTube. He is on YouTube. But we have Todd and Anish going and doing DCDVS events, whether it's at a university or outside. But there are 2 things about that. We partnered with the Institute of Medicine a couple of years ago to help us launch the Health Data Initiative. And as part of that, so speaking about the data piece and then speaking about challenges, we coupled it with a challenge. And so one of the challenges that Institute of Medicine launched was to get people who are in universities, whether they're a grad student or undergrad, schools of engineering and computer science had to partner with somebody at a school of public health or medical school or some other kind of clinical school to come up with the best app using the data that we have. And so they ran the first one. And I can't remember the prize money, but it was very small, $2,500 or something. And it was so successful they're running a second one right now. It's open to all university students across the country. So that's one piece. We're using our partners like the Institute of Medicine, which have people nominated to the National Academy of Sciences from every major university in the country. So we're trying to do outreach via the challenges, via the speaking engagements. But also when we go and speak to entrepreneurs, a lot of the entrepreneurs happen to be younger. And so they're just graduated or they're post-graduation. And so that's the other way we're reaching out. And to give you, kind of a couple of other signals, some of the folks that we've worked with. So Jeff Hammerbacher is one of the early guys at Facebook. And I don't think he's even 30 yet. And he headed up data at Facebook. So a phenomenally important job for such a huge company like Facebook. And he left Facebook a few years ago, and he was quoted in Business Week this summer saying, "The best minds in my generation are trying to figure out how to get people to click ads. I'm tired of that. That sucks." And so he's become an ambassador of sorts for the biology space as well as the healthcare space. So recruiting people like that. If you look at another startup, so he's got his own startup and he works at Sage Bio-Networks. If you look at one of the startups out there, Massive Health, there are 2 people who are formerly from Mozilla who come out to say basically the same way. We want to do something that makes a difference. A month ago, we went to Brooklyn, and we went to something called Brooklyn Beta, which are some of the best minds in our country who are web entrepreneurs, designers, and technologists. It was an underground South by Southwest, where the entire conference was devoted to doing something that is going to make an impact on this world. And so certainly the interest is there, and this is what gives us a lot of inspiration. When we meet people like this, they are enormously talented, and they want to come and work on healthcare. And it is our job, and it is our obligation to say, okay, here are the opportunities. Because I'll tell you what, we have one shot with that generation. And if we ruin it, they will never come back to healthcare. And as I've heard Todd and others say, at least going back to the 80s and 90s, they say, in terms of healthcare, that's where third-rate engineers used to go to die in Silicon Valley. That is certainly undergoing a shift, and we're seeing that in our day-to-day interactions with folks. But it's incumbent upon all of us in this room to really take that on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, so very specific follow-up. We have a great entrepreneurship program in where I live in Boulder, Colorado, at CU Boulder. So very specifically, if I wanted to bring this challenge to them, would it be a website I could direct them to and present? But it might be helpful to have a presentation from someone to get them excited as they're doing, because they have a whole business case class. So they have a lot of people who are looking to become entrepreneurs. So who can I point them to?
Great. Well, let me give you my email address first. Okay, it's wil.yu@hhs.gov. It's probably one of the shortest email addresses in the government. Okay, but we will actually be at the University of Colorado at Boulder on the 9th.
2 days.
2 days. Okay. Okay. The Chief Technology Officer for the United States will actually be in Boulder, talking at an event. If you send me an email, I'll get you linked up with the event organizers. Okay. We're trying to attack as many of the traditional, innovation hubs, Silicon Valley, Boston, DC, New York, as possible, but also as many of the non-traditional ones as possible, because we see this as a real nationwide effort. Okay. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Neil Wasserman from Health Center. It's been very exciting to hear about all of the inspiring technology stimulus that you've been talking about. But I just wanted to ask if maybe this isn't a little bit like looking for the coin, under the light at the lamppost. It's the problem that we can solve, and it's an important and necessary problem. But the problem that is eating up, 80% of healthcare costs is basically chronic disease, onset chronic disease management. And there are sort of three broad areas that impinge on that. One is health IT, maybe another is provider services organization, which is now very specialized and not integrated. And the third is what patients actually do, their behaviors or potential patients. Is there something like a government task force, or should there be a government task force that addresses these more strategic, integrative problems, such as what do we do about chronic disease? How do we put the pieces together that will actually bend the cost curve associated with that?
Do you want to take that first?
Sure. So if I'm not sure I understand your question, but if I do, the CMS Innovation Center is almost entirely dedicated to that, right? Because it's about the Medicare and Medicaid population, which is the heart of, I think, the people who are chronically ill, which you're talking about. And so it's a 10-year center with $10 billion to run experiments, to see how do you have better health, better care at lower costs. And that's what they are laser focused on right now. So I would check out innovations.cms.gov. And in terms of task forces and committees, there's lots of them, whether you go to AHRQ or HRSA, so there's lots of collaboration that's happening at the department that we haven't seen in a long time. NIH as well in terms of aligning, grants and funding for that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that activity that's taking place, but maybe I didn't quite understand your question. So. I think maybe I was just a little bit behind the curve. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that activity. I mean, check out the Innovation Center, but also, CMS is aligning with ONC, as well as aligning with a lot of other of our federal partners. So there's a lot of that activity is taking place. Right? I mentioned the VA I2, the innovation program there as well.
Right. Through High Tech, we've actually funded $250 million to fund 17 communities across the country called the Beacon Communities. Really, how will these groups of, municipalities, urban areas, really address issues of chronic disease. Each Beacon community is assigned a task of how do we, I guess, disease, heart disease, asthma, if you will, through health IT, okay, through new technologies and innovations to engage not only the care providers, the patients, but also the other stakeholders within their local environment. So if you have I guess some questions about that, feel free to refer them to me. But we're interested in how to, I guess, communicate some of these efforts. Okay, and if you have ideas of how we might be doing things differently, please let us know. Okay, because I agree with you that the chronic disease issue is an area that desperately needs development, but it's how to get that message out to those who would help provide the solutions, and for us to identify them. Okay, whether that be within, I guess, meetings like this. Okay, whether it be in large expert panels and roundtables. Certainly, there are enough meetings that take place within the federal government. Okay, on a day in, day out basis. But it's how to, I guess, broadcast the messages and the results that come out of there. Okay, because the efforts that we've been engaged in so far are already speaking to those who are aware of what the problem is. Okay, and I think we need to kind of expand that message a bit. Yes. Yes.
All over the country. I looked at the agenda. I didn't see your names, but it would be a great addition to be in front of 6,000 people who are only interested in quality. So that would be the first suggestion I have. The second, though, is there has to be a paradigm shift that has to occur in the healthcare community. When we talk about data and data collection, we're always talking about the physician or the nurse or somebody putting the information in. Thank you. Oh, thank you. We have not gotten to the point of saying that the patient should be putting the information in. Why is it that a physician has to say, do you have yes or no gallbladder disease? Of course it's silly. Our patients can do that. We just completed a study at my institution, 2,500 patients doing e-visits. What was the youngest person who did the e-visit? 4 days. 4 days old. There it was, a nice structured history furnished by the patient, all in identified code, a beautiful picture of a diaper rash, and a list of their allergies and medicines. How long as a clinician did I have to take care of that patient? 2 minutes, 3 minutes? How much time did I save that family? Hours. The cost was $35. My margin was higher. The paradigm shift, or the thing that I'd like you to look at, is how we collect our data. How can we empower our patients to do what we already know they can do, which is answer the questions, to fill up our EMRs, to free up physicians to do the things that are necessary. So that would be my suggestion for innovation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are excellent points. We just rolled out at ONC our consumer health IT strategy last month, trying to make patients aware that they can actually get access to their health records, okay, as a result of high tech. By law, as a result of high tech, you are entitled to your health records within a certain time frame after each event, each visit. And I think much of the population isn't aware of these opportunities or what context that data should be, I guess, addressed in. I think that the issue that you bring up about, I guess, increasing the bidirectional level of communication is a very salient one. I'd love to talk to you a little bit later about this.
Hi, this is Jerry Bishop. I'm from a local hospital, about 380 beds. We're talking here about bundled payment. We're talking about ACOs. We're talking about hacks. We're talking about the racks and the MACs. We're talking about meaningful use. We're talking about value-based purchasing. We're talking about readmissions. But you know what I'm worried about in my home care and my health care place right now? I'm worried about the undocumented. I'm worried about what are we going to do with those undocumented people. Because those are the people that are coming into our health care system. Those are the people that need us right now. And those are the people, after we get them out, there's no place for them to go. There's really no help. And if you have a place for me to go, I'd love to hear it.
Are you working on this right now?
Yeah, Will and I are searching our brains to see who's working on this right now. I'm sure there are people who are working on this, but that's not one that, happy to look into it for you, but that's not one that comes immediately to my mind in terms of, a person. There are people certainly who are experts on that issue, but that's not an area that I'm that familiar with.
Right.
Well, I don't have to tell you, it's huge in the news. It's been in the New York Times,
Sure.
probably 6 in the last 5 months. And locally, it is phenomenal. These people are getting older too, not like all of us, some of us are getting younger. But they are getting older too, and they need to be taken care of. And just going ahead and putting them on a plane and going back home is not the way to take care of them, because that's not the way they're going to be able to be taken care of. Never mind the expense of trying to find where their people are back home. But it is a huge, huge issue for us, and I don't think it's just here in the Washington metropolitan area.
Thank you for that. You do have my promise to personally look into, like, what are the, I guess, the department resources, if any, that are addressing this. Okay. Thank you.
Question about another area I haven't heard the Innovation Center address, but I may just not be aware of it, and that's the issue of audit and abuse, fraud and abuse. Very familiar with the situation in California, which alone probably has billions of fraud and abuse in the CMS Medicaid and Medicare system. So I was just curious if there's any efforts within the Innovation Center around trying to curb that fraud and abuse right now.
So the responsibility for that falls on an entire division that is dedicated exactly to that inside of CMS, and it's called the Center for Program Integrity. It's run by a fellow named Peter Bodetti, and so it's adjacent to the Innovation Center. So just for some of you who don't know, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services is roughly 5,000 employees. At the Innovation Center, we have on the order of 150 or so, and it is one of the many centers within CMS. And we have one on program integrity that has been very successful in the programs that they've rolled out over the last 24 months or so. And so if you look up program integrity, CMS, Peter Bodetti, that's where you'll find a lot of the work that's happening there.
And I can say personally that Peter is very focused on what the trajectory is for addressing fraud and abuse, especially in the coming years when we begin to digitize a large percentage of our records and EMR adoption, I guess, accelerates. I mean, if you thought fraud and abuse, was a significant issue in a world where a large percentage of the hospitals were paper-based, just wait till a large number of the claims are actually digital. Okay, and you can actually commit fraud on a level of 100,000 records at once. Okay, so new innovations bring, I guess, new challenges, and it's something that is being intensely looked at, especially as we see this as very low-hanging fruit for cost savings. Certainly there's significant technological issues, privacy issues that need to be addressed, but I guess you have to take it on a matter of faith that there are folks who are intensely focused on this.
Hi. My name is Ting Shi. I'm a healthcare entrepreneur from MIT, maybe the first in this room. What we have developed is a mobile health solution that collects real-time data and allows remote consultation within less than 3 days by specialists. Now, we've been running this for about 3 years in more than 10 countries, including the US and also free clinics. Biggest challenge I have is navigating the payment. Some are reimbursable by private healthcare, some are by Medicare, Medicaid, some are out of pocket. And I still have no clue as to how to really justify care for telemedicine. Some states reimburse for video-based, some states do forwarding of images and multimedia. What is your suggestion as to where our country is going with regards to telehealth? It's proven its cost savings over and over, and most other countries have been somewhat of pioneers in terms of adopting mobile health care.
Do you want ACOs?
You want to take it? Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you brought that issue up, because that is a conversation that I have at least several times a week. Okay, I have a long line of innovators like yourself who come to, I guess, HHS and say, these are problems that we're having. We don't even want you guys to fund us. We want to, be able to develop a sustainable business model in the private sector, okay, that, functions within the confines of the existing healthcare system, and we're having troubles doing so. The promise of reimbursement for quality, okay, ACOs, bundle payments, whatever model that you want to put in that bucket is designed to create the environment to support that. It's not a short-term solution by any means, but we're trying to incentivize the adoption of technologies that will be aligned with better health outcomes, better health, and lower cost. Certainly, the telemedicine, I guess, industry, mobile health industry, if you will, have been firmly behind some of the, I guess, the new pilot projects because they see it as an opportunity for, I guess, greater adoption. For startups specifically like yourself, we are trying to, I guess, link up the resources that are currently exist within the federal government for pilot projects. Okay, I mentioned some of them in my talk, but also with others in the ecosystem, the accelerators, those who are working specifically within mHealth, I guess, for, I guess, greater promotion and adoption. Okay, we have a national mHealth summit that's taking place in early December that's coming up in DC, December 5th through 7th, and I've helped to organize a lot of the, I guess, technology tracks in that area. I encourage you to check that session out. Okay, but the long-term solution will be to continue to create an environment where that type of reimbursement or the market opportunity for your technologies exist.
And I would just add on to that, if you have evidence, we want to hear from you. And I think, make your voice heard, whether it's at the Innovation Center or whether it's at, the VA or at HRSA or whatever the case is. But, I think that's the one thing is that now's your opportunity to be heard. And there's a multitude of mechanisms and channels that we have done our best to open up to create these conditions for entrepreneurship. And take advantage of those, and we do, if you have evidence, robust evidence of what you're doing, we absolutely want to hear from you, and I encourage you to apply to the variety of programs that we have. Todd talked about it probably this morning. We're going to have Health Data Palooza 3, and sometime in the summer, we'll have an open call for applications. On January 26th, Will and I are leading some efforts around, with the CMS Innovation Center to do a Care Innovation Summit. We had an open call for applications in that case as well for the best innovations across the country. So find out, there's plenty of these opportunities that exist. And we definitely want to hear more from people like you. And so take advantage of those opportunities.
Any other questions? That was great. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.